My mission is to empower women to fearlessly embrace and live their authentic lives. Many of us carry pain and grief beneath the surface wounds that no one can truly see or judge from the outside. Today's guest is a top comedian known for his incredible ability to make people laugh. Yet behind that laughter lies a journey marked by profound challenges and loss. Despite it all, he has chosen to make bringing joy his mission. And in doing so, has cultivated a positive mindset about life and mortality. With Father's Day just around the corner, I am thrilled to spotlight Maz Jobrani in this special episode, where we will go beyond the stage and the punchlines to have a heartfelt conversation and get to know him on a different level, know the man behind the comedy. So, Maz Jobrani is an Iranian-American comedian and actor. He was born in Tehran, Iran. He and his parents moved to California when he was just about 6 years old. He studied political science and Italian at UC Berkeley, where he received his bachelor's. And he was also enrolled for a PhD program at UCLA, where he pursued his childhood dream of acting and performing comedy, which was what he really wanted to do. Maz has appeared in numerous films and television shows, including Better Off Ted. He's been on the radio and in comedy clubs. He appeared as a regular character on the 2017 CBS sitcom Superior Donuts. Maz Jobrani has also since made appearances on shows like The Colbert Report, The Tonight Show, The Late Show, and many more. He regularly performs at top comedy clubs in California as well as New York. Maz, thank you so much for being on Female Fluence. I'm truly honored to have you today, and welcome to Female Fluence.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Thank you for not mentioning that I dropped out of the PhD program, which was a PhD. I was trying to get my PhD in political science. Quickly realized it wasn't for me.
I left that part out, but you look at how amazing and successful you are right now.
Best thing I ever did, left that PhD program.
Yes. I'm glad you're happy about that. So let's dive in. Now, did you always know you wanted to be a comedian? And was there anyone who encouraged or discouraged you from being one?
I think that my interest in comedy and acting started when I was around maybe 10 or so, when Eddie Murphy became a superstar. And a lot of people from my generation would point to Eddie Murphy as the person that they all looked up to. And then when I was 12 years old in junior high school in Northern California, I did the musical in my junior high school, and I loved being on stage. And then in high school, we had a great theater program. I love being on stage. But throughout the whole thing, I would tell my immigrant parents, oh, I want to be an actor, I want to be a comedian. And they would laugh at me and say, no, you need to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. And that's why when I went to Cal, I studied political science, thinking that maybe I'll go on and be a lawyer. And then my junior year in college, I studied abroad in Italy for 1 year. And while I was there was this professor, Enzo Pace, and I love what he was doing, Vincenzo Pace. I just love what he did. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a professor. That way I can please my parents by having a reputable job while also standing in front of people and performing. Meanwhile, I continued, though, to do plays on the side and continued to try to dip my toes into the world of acting and comedy. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s when I dropped out of that PhD program. I was working in an advertising agency for my day job, and there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Rhine at the ad agency. And Joe was in his 60s, and at the time I was in my mid-20s. And he saw me do a play, and he said, hey, you're funny. Have you ever thought about doing this? I said, Joe, my whole life I kept wanting to do this, but my parents have kept pushing me away from it. And I said, I'm going to save up some money and maybe go for it when I'm in my 30s. And he took me to his office. He goes, listen, I'm in my 60s now, and there were some things I wanted to do all the way back in my 20s, and I never did it. So he goes, if you really want to do it, and it was a light bulb moment, and I decided to go for it, and that was 26 years ago. I haven't looked back.
You know, that's incredible. And I feel like when we really know within our heart what we want to do and what makes us happy, no matter we try, I know being Persian myself, I get it. You want to impress the parents, they have high expectations. but it's whatever you try to go the way that they want it to, it just somehow led you back to what you're supposed to do, right? So it's amazing, but you have to listen for those signs, and that's the key. And sometimes we try to ignore them and say, no, I have to do this. And then we get to a point, like your friend was saying, you're 60 years old, you're 70, and you look back and you have all these regrets because you didn't really follow your purpose and you did what you wanted to do to please other people.
Yeah, yeah. I think that if we're lucky enough to find what we love doing, it's worth going for it. And then you know that it's what you love when because every industry has politics, every industry is going to have difficulties. But if you do what you want to do, what you love doing, then you're willing to put up with the politics and the difficulties. And that happened to me. I tried a bunch of different sales jobs and I tried different things coming out of college, trying to figure out what else I can do to make money, and none of them really, I didn't have the tenacity to stick with it. But with comedy, I stuck with it. You would go to the comedy clubs, you'd have to stay there till maybe 1:30 in the morning to get on stage, and I loved every minute of it. I found what I loved.
That's when you know, when you have that serious dedication. Now, as an immigrant and as a child of immigrants, there's often that tension between honoring your parents' sacrifices, right? Because they say, oh, we came all the way over here and we want you to do this and that. And then between following your own pathway. So how did you navigate that, especially with something as bold and uncertain as comedy?
I think again, I had the moment, the light bulb moment of you live once and you should live and do what you want to do. Obviously, we were taught to respect our parents, and there was a lot of that going on. When I went to Italy for my junior year abroad, my father had just returned back to Iran to see if he could do some business there. And at the time, my mother and my aunt were insisting that I stay in America and help my mother. I had two younger brothers. They're like, you should be around. You should be there to help your mom the way you would think anyone in our community would, familial way, right? The pressure of the family. And I told them, I said, listen, I've been preparing to, excuse me, I've been preparing to go to Italy for a year. I've learned the language. I've done all the paperwork. I've gotten the funds put together. Everything's good to go. I can't not go. And I went, and my mom and my aunt were a little upset at me, but eventually they came around. And for me, it was one of the best years of my life. And so that I think was one of the first times that I saw something through, even though my parents or those people, the elders, didn't want me to do it. And that also was eye-opening to see, oh, you can do that. You don't have to listen to them. And ultimately, you shouldn't listen to them. You should really listen to a bunch of people. If you're interested in something, talk to people that are in those industries or doing what they do, and then make your own decision, really. You can't count on your parents to decide what's going to be good for you in the end.
Right. And it's scary. With that comes growth. And that's what you did. You went after your dream at Italy. Oh my goodness. I would be there right there with you. So was it difficult for an Iranian to become a comedian in America? What kind of challenges, cultural right, or otherwise, did you face breaking into that comedy world?
The difficulty at the beginning was when I first started, there just weren't that many Iranian Americans or Middle Eastern Americans, really. Omid Jalili was in London, England doing it. I was here doing it. And I think the difficulty, there was an opportunity because there hadn't been somebody like us. So there was an opportunity to go into a room filled with comedians from different backgrounds and then stand out because you're talking about a background that no one else is talking about. But the difficulties came a lot of times in casting, where a lot of the parts that were available were terrorist parts or bad guy parts, that kind of stuff. And I think in 26 years now, we see the industry has made somewhat of a shift, not a full 180, but there's a shift happening where we're seeing shows like Rami or Mo, where people are telling their story from their point of view, and the industry is allowing them to do that. And we see other characters that are just neutral characters that happen to be of Middle Eastern or East South Asian descent or whatever. So I think that's been the biggest difference, is that we've, thank God, now have more people from our backgrounds telling these stories.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've come a long way. It's been a huge shift for sure. We make people laugh for a living, which is such a gift. Laughter is the medicine for everything. But I know you've also carried a lot of grief in your own life. Would you be open to sharing some of the challenging moments you face and how they've shaped you as a person and as a comedian?
Listen, we all, when you go through a tragedy, you realize that everyone has gone or will go through a tragedy. For example, I lost my brother in 2014, and then I lost my sister in 2017. And both times when they passed away, I would talk about them in my social media and make an announcement and all. And then I was on tour afterwards, and I would have people come up to me and say, "Hey, I also lost a sibling. Hey, I just went through the same thing. Hey, my mother was just diagnosed with cancer," or whatever it was. And you realize, oh, we're all dealing with everything. And there's no point in trying to hide it. And I think it's good to talk about it. I personally think it's therapeutic. And also, I always say, like, I never take joy in hearing that someone has lost somebody. It doesn't give me it's nothing but sadness when you hear that. But there's also a feeling of when you hear somebody else has lost somebody, you go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I think it's good to talk about these things. And yeah, I've lost them that I just told you. I lost one of my best friends in high school. He committed suicide. There was my grandfather, sorry, my throat keeps, I don't know what it is. I think I'm getting over a cold. My grandfather, who was one of the closest people in my life because he lived with us and he was just this angel of a human being, Akbar Farzane, he was one of the big first losses we had as a family. And that was really challenging. And then, of course, lost my father. So yeah, there's all that stuff. And then, like I said, the only place of comfort is where when you share it, you have somebody else come up and go, "Hey, I'm also going through something," or "I've sympathized with you," or whatever. It's good. It's good to put it out there.
Course. I think when we are vulnerable and we show that you're acting, you're a comedian, but when you're showing people to your audience, even that you're a real person, they make that connection with you and you become more authentic to them. And it helps in the process, it helps heal you as well. So that's very true. But I think also, though, in a way, it's challenging because as a comedian, you always have to be like your button has to be always on and you're expected to always be happy. So how do you stay grounded and positive and like life gets in the way and then you have to get up on stage and your job is to make people laugh, but you've had a horrible week.
The stage can be almost therapeutic if you're talking about what's going on in your life. So when my grandfather passed away, I actually remember when he was basically in his hospice care bed and we were at home just waiting and it was taking a week. And so at some point I said, I got to go to the comedy club. And I went there and I just talked about him a little bit. And then when he passed away again, I would talk about him and some of the things that happened when he passed away. And I think people, if you talk about serious issues, but you show some vulnerability and you kind of laugh at what's going on, people will laugh with you. I always say Richard Pryor was trying to smoke freebase cocaine, I think, and he set himself on fire. And then he came back in his next special and talked about it, and people laughed. So you just got to be. Some comics obviously are comics who are doing a character, or they got to switch on to something. But if you come from a place of this is me, this is sincerely who I am, it's okay to go on stage and say, "Hey, I just lost my grandfather," and tell some stories.
Normally you do it that way, you don't hide, because I would think some people would do the reverse and they would block everything out and bury it and hide behind their jokes and have a second. Or are you able to each time when you go, because it's hard, you have to be real, but you want to also make people laugh, right?
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because not everybody knows what you're going through. So if you go up on stage and say, "Hey, whatever, I don't know, I just lost the bank just took my home and my wife just left me," people might not know that,
People
and
might hope that you're just kidding.
yeah, but if you are able to tell a story and make it funny, hopefully, then I think they start seeing the sincerity in it. So again, if you lose somebody and you go on stage and go, "Hey, I just lost my grandfather," but then you have some funny stuff about it, because you also, to your point, you don't want to be on stage. It's not a therapy session.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, so you can't just sit there and sob on stage. And yeah, I think there's a fine line, and it's what you want to share. And if you're so emotionally distraught, you could choose to not even go on stage. I actually did something like that when I lost my brother. I was supposed to be in Chicago taping something called Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is an NPR show where we make fun of the week's news. And I flew in to go do it, and I landed, and I was supposed to be funny that night. And I landed at the airport, and I woke up from my nap on the plane, and I thought, gosh, I don't know if I can be funny because I just lost my brother. So I called my manager, who called the folks that were doing the show, and he said, "Hey, can you get someone else to fill in?" And they were very kind, and they did. And I just got on a plane and flew right back. So there are times when that can happen, and you just got to listen to yourself. You can't force yourself to go on stage if you are going through something. But then again, you also, when I lost my sister, I had a show, I think it was maybe a few days after or something. And I went and I did the show. And then afterwards, it was in Vegas, and I got myself a drink in like in honor of her and toasted her. And then, as a matter of fact, it was interesting because I sat down at a blackjack table. I was alone, and when my father had been in the hospital, there was a nurse by the name of Colin who soothed myself and my sister when my dad was sick. And he was a great, to the point where I still remember his name, from 2009. He was just this great human being. And so when my sister passed away in 2017, and I was in Vegas at the blackjack table, I'm playing blackjack, and there's this young guy there, probably in his early 20s, and we just start talking. And I was first impressed with how mature he was, and how he knew a lot of cultural references that were of my generation. And then at one point, I guess he'd recognized me as well. And he's like, "Hey, my parents are here and we're fans," or something like that. And then I said, "Oh, what's your name?" He said, "My name is Colin." And I thought, oh my God, what are the odds that the guy's name would be the same name that soothed myself and my sister? And here I am mourning my sister right now. There's ways of doing it like that. To your point, you block it, you go on stage, you do your thing, and then you get into it afterwards. And sometimes these messages are sent your way.
Yes, for sure. And I think Colin was a message for you to help heal you at that moment. That's what you
Yeah,
needed, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
healing. So was there a moment that made you more aware of mortality, that shifted your perspective and brought you into a more profound sense of, I need to live in the present moment? I know you like psychology. Did you ever see a therapist, or did you work on it on your own to realize everyone's gonna die, this is life, but I need to live in the present moment and I need to enjoy every moment. And that's what my siblings would want. That's what my father would want.
Yeah, I've always been someone who's lived for the moment. It's Bob Marley's "If you know what life is worth, you will look for yours on earth." Because I don't know. I don't know what's in the afterlife. If there is one, I have no idea. So I try as much as I can to live in the moment, to enjoy myself, to go on trips, to be with friends. I think when I lost my brother, I actually made a little more of a intentional decision to spend time with friends, also try to show up for them for their weddings and their funerals and their special occasions if you can, because it's special to them. So a lot of times we're lazy. We're like, "Ah, I don't know. I don't want to go on this trip." This is what life is. It's about sunsets and ocean breezes and friends. And yeah, I think there's been, throughout my life, I've been reminded that it's short. It's a short life. If you're lucky, if you live to be 50, and then
So
over that is so. I feel bad for people who are in such a place where they're stuck, and they don't enjoy their lives, and they don't set out to go on a vacation and be with family and friends and all that. And then also when you have your kids, you go, "Oh my God, these kids are going to grow so fast." But then again, you go, "All right, I'm exhausted, but I'm going to wake up at 5 and drive this kid to his club soccer tournament. And I'm going to take my daughter and go skiing," or whatever it is. It's just, what else are we doing? If we're not doing that, what are you doing?
I have three kids. My oldest will be 20 in August, and then I have a
Wow.
17-year-old, and my son's almost 14. And I have no idea where the time went. I cannot believe it. So I completely understand and resonate with you. And I would just say, just spend as much time as you can, because it goes by quickly. And before you know it, they're starting their own life. And it's scary. It's scary as
Yeah,
parents, right? For us.
yeah, yeah.
So the other thing I was going to ask you is society often expects women to to behave a certain way, and we talk a lot about that on this show, but also it discourages men from being honest about their emotions. And I know being a man and being Persian, you're taught to suppress your feelings, and it's not masculine to do. How were you able to grapple with your mental health within that framework and break free from those expectations that society has of you?
I would say it's an ongoing process because I think my father really instilled a lot of that manliness and that mentality in my mind. I remember actually I did a joke about this, but it's true. I remember I must have been, I don't know, 5 years old or something. I was running, I fell, cut my knee, I was about to cry, and my dad, trying to console me, he said, "Oh, son, don't cry. Men don't cry." That kind of thing. And I remember just like holding it in. And then in the joke, I talk about how then I would go to movies like E.T., and there's an emotional scene at the end, and my heart wants to cry, but my brain says, "Men don't cry," so I don't cry. And then once my kids were born, I started getting more emotional again. And again, I'm not like, I have friends of mine male friends who cry on the drop of a dime, but drop of a dime, drop of a hat. But I do get emotional. Matter of fact, we were talking about your kids growing up. The Lebanese writer poet Jobrani, who wrote The Prophet, there's a section where they say, "Tell us about talk to us about children, on children." And he says, "Your children are not your own. They come through you, but they're their own people. And if you want them to be a strong arrow, you need to be a strong bow." And it's just this beautiful written piece. And I remember I would read it when the kids were younger, and I would just be like, "Oh, that's so beautiful." Once they became teenagers and it really hit that they're their own people and they're going to be going away, oh man, I was like, when I read it, I'm always like, oh, it's like somebody's pulling at my heart. So it's good. It's good to be vulnerable. It's good to be open to emotions because those are human emotions. And unfortunately, a lot of cultures, not just the Iranian culture, but a lot of cultures don't encourage that. And it's probably detrimental to their health, to our health.
I agree. It's not healthy. And I have my son, and I am always making sure I want him to be strong, but at the same time, I want him to acknowledge his feelings. And you can be strong, but you can be vulnerable at the same time. And that makes you more real. You have to share that with me. I would love to read about the parent and the child.
Oh,
That's
it's easy. Just go online. That means all over like that you can get that. So the book, The Prophet, is a book that is just a thin book that I think a lot of people have. And it's basically this prophet who speaks on marriage and then speaks on love and speaks on children. And so each page is kind of like a thing you could read.
yeah,
It's like
quick.
poetry. The one on children is the one, if you go online and just put The Prophet children, I think it'll come up. I've seen screenshots of it, not screenshots, it's like images of it, and it's just a one-page thing about children. And there's so much things in there that you go, oh my God, wow. And again, he talks about other aspects of life as well. So it's actually a good book to get as well. It's a good book to have at the house.
Sounds interesting. Now, to shift gears a little bit, as one people pleaser, because I know you are, how do you work on prioritizing yourself? What does setting boundaries and putting your needs look like, especially in a career where you're constantly giving to others? Because I know, like, you have your family and then you have to go on tour and you want to make sure that you get all the projects in, but it's hard, right? To say yes to everything and all of a sudden you feel that burnout and you're exhausted. So, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think early on, I thought, like you said, to say yes to everything, say yes to everything. And I still have difficulty saying no. I still say yes more than I should. But it is good to what you just said. When you start thinking about, okay, wait a minute, if I say yes to this show that's, I don't know, a half an hour drive there, half an hour drive back, what am I what's the cost of it, right? What am I losing to do that? I could be home spending time with my kids or my wife or my dog or myself. I could be napping, I could be exercising, I could be writing something. There's a million other things I could do. And so once you realize, oh, that actually takes something away, then you start to, like you said, compute it like that. And then I've had that conversation with people. They'll say, oh, hey, we are raising money for this great cause and we'll pay for you to fly out to Florida and do it and go back. And I go, listen, I appreciate your cause. I love your cause, but I can't be away from my family just to come support this cause because now I'm going to be a martyr for other people, but I'll be the guy who was missed out on my kid's life and wasn't there to help. So those things, it helps to have those things and start to put it in perspective and explain that. I'm pretty honest with people when I say things. I go, look, I'd love to come do your thing, but it's just there's not enough time for me to do it. Especially since my job is one that takes me away from the family all the time. So I try to be stingy with my time away when I'm not working.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it because you can get lost in the world. And once you do one thing for charity, then it's the next one and the next one, or whatever project it is. And if you really calculate the time away from family, from the things that you want to do, then you have to see if it's worth it and set those boundaries.
Listen, there's charity. You said charities, not just charities with anything. There's charities I work with that are in town. I can go do it, or there's charities I work with that have a budget. So it's work. So fantastic. But again, you got to look at the opportunity cost. What am I missing out on by taking this, by saying yes to this thing? It could be a party. Somebody says, "Hey, I'm having a party. Come to my party." And I'm like, oh God, I don't know. Like I need to be home with my family as opposed to coming
Downtown.
to your
I like
party.
that. I like how you say opportunity cost. That's the perfect way to look at it, to
Yeah,
see, yeah,
yeah,
it's exactly the right way.
yeah.
So since this is an early Father's Day episode, could you share a little bit about your relationship with your father? And I know he has passed away and I'm really sorry, but how did that influence you personally or even in your comedy?
My father, I love telling stories about my father because the I always say my father was like Vito Corleone from The Godfather. He was a successful businessman in Iran who had a lot of power. He had friends that were generals and mayors and police chiefs and all this other stuff. And he was the guy that people would come to a lot and say, "Hey, I need you to do me a favor. Can you help me out?" And my dad would always step up. And I used to hear these stories and I thought they were all made up until I had other people come to me and tell me, "Oh, your father helped me." One guy, I was in Dubai. This guy goes, "When I was young, I was just married and I was needed a place. I was looking for a place and I ran into your father in Iran. They would go in the sauna and they would all be talking, right? All these men are talking about whatever. And this guy comes in and he goes, "Hey, I just got married and yeah, I'm so excited. I got to go find a place to buy and to live with my wife." And my dad says, "Meet me this afternoon. I've got a building. You can look at some of my units." So supposedly, according to this guy, he said, "Your father brought me to the place. He's like, this is my building. Just pick a unit and pay me when you can." Like that kind of like the word is we know is large, right? Like he was very generous. And that guy told me, he goes, "Because of your father, I was able to move in there with my wife, eventually own the place, and then that's the money I got when I was had to flee Iran. I sold that place, and that money got me to come out of Iran." And so those were common stories I would hear about my dad. He was very generous. He was large, as we said. He wasn't perfect, and you try to learn from them. Like, again, my father had a lot of money, but then he lost a lot of it because on bad investments. And he did not see the importance of putting money away for your future, for your children, all that stuff. Like he was so in the moment and there was so much money that he just was spending without saying, "Oh, let me put some of this away in some kind of retirement plan or a thing for put a little money for my kids and stuff." So he passed away without any money at the end. And at the same time, he definitely he coming from northern Iran, Tabriz, they were big drinkers, and drinking was like no big deal. To me, I always thought it was no big deal. I still enjoy a drink, but I know that wow, there was addiction there. So there's things that aren't great. His relationship with my mom probably wasn't the best, but there's a lot of stuff that are great. And I've always wanted to make a movie or tell a story based on him and his stories and his life. And I've started and stopped several times. I just need to find the thread or give myself the freedom to. I just want to make it so it's entertaining, so that people will enjoy the story as opposed to me just rambling on about my father.
I think that's wonderful. Definitely, I think you should do it.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I know as immigrant parents, there wasn't much communication, especially even back in the day with our children, right? Like they wouldn't tell us too much. We weren't really supposed to talk back. It was just like, if you're quiet and you follow the rules, you're a good child. But as a father yourself today, do you think you are parenting differently? have you approached communication with your kids in a different way? Are you more open and having real conversations with them, or is it?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. It's funny you say that because I would complain about how little my parents were involved in those types of situations. So I used to complain about, oh, my dad never came to any of my games. My mom never came to any of my games. Once in a while they came, and when they would come, they would stand out because they were these immigrants and they were embarrassing. But I always said, oh, my parents never came. And then as my kids got older, I would go to their games, and especially like my daughter, like when it came to tennis, she's like, you can't watch me. And I was like, but I want to have fun. You can't watch me. So now I'm like sitting in my car waiting for
Gets
her to
nervous?
finish the
Is that
match.
what it is?
What's that?
Gets nervous if you watch?
I guess I think that they think that I'm like judging or what. I actually want to be entertained by watching it. But I think the person themselves probably feels some kind of pressure. Like even my son, I felt bad. Like when he was on a soccer team, like when he would score a goal, the first thing he'd do is turn around and find me on the sideline, which is what a lot of kids would do at that age. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't know, like how do we get them to not do that? How do we get them to play the game, have fun, celebrate for yourself? We're gonna talk about it afterwards, give you a hug, but don't do it for me. So there was that. There was also like I used to joke about how nobody ever taught us about like, the birds and the bees and all those things. And I tried to talk about it. I tried to do it with my son. He was like, "Dad, this is uncomfortable." I was like, "Okay, forget it." Yeah, I'm trying. It seems like they don't want it. My parents didn't want to talk to me. My kids don't want to talk to me. I'm just right
You're
here in the
stuck.
middle. I'm stuck. I'm talking to you.
You can talk to me about it all. It's all
Yes,
good.
yes.
That's funny. No, it was a different world and it's hard to balance it. But now I feel like it's expected. Like my parents were the same way. They didn't come. I don't even think they came to back to school night or any of that stuff. It was just like, and we did everything on our own. It's like you
Yeah,
filled out the form. I applied like for a loan, applied for college. But now it's such a different world. And you'll see as your kids get older, or maybe your kids will be a lot more independent. For my kids, they're pretty independent, but still there's a lot that I have to still do no matter what age, and they expect it. And that's because all the other parents are doing it. They're holding their hand for everything,
it's
which isn't
crazy.
good, right? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's very unhealthy. I see it. We have it. As my kids are getting ready for, my son's getting ready to apply to college and all these college counselors and all this other stuff. I'm like,
A
this
mess.
is such a scam. I
It
talked
is.
about it last night. I said, nobody's getting into any college. And you have this guy on Instagram, he sits there at the computer and he looks at his computer and he says, this girl had a 4.9. She had a 1700. She plays the piano, cello, and the violin at the same time. She cured cancer and she got into Chico State. And so, of course, as a parent, you're like, oh my God, I got to do something for my kid and help them get in. And I was saying about it, and then I go, you do all of that, you go through all that anxiety. If you're lucky enough for them to get into some school, then that school says, now pay me 100 grand a year for me to teach your kid. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get my kid chat GPT and have AI teach them. It's a lot cheaper and there's no admissions process.
I completely agree with you. I've gone through this with my first daughter, and now we're right in the process because she's a junior, and it is so stressful. It's
Yeah,
so hard, and it breaks my heart because I keep telling her, like, she's a great student, she's doing everything, but there's no guarantee. And you're right, at the end, even if she gets into that school, we're going to be stuck with this huge payment
yeah,
for 4 years or whatnot. So
yeah,
it's horrible. Now,
yeah.
speaking of colleges, you were actually invited to give a commencement speech at UC Berkeley, one of America's top universities. As an Iranian immigrant from a country where freedom of speech is limited, how did you feel in that moment? Did you feel like you were like living the American dream?
Yeah, I actually said that in the speech. That's where I went to school. And then in 2017, they asked me to give the speech. And my Netflix special had just come out called Immigrant. And I was really just trying to celebrate immigrants. And I actually just reposted it because it's graduation season. I just reposted a clip on my Instagram. But I felt like, because I was trying to figure out why they chose me. And I felt that maybe my being an immigrant and all the anti-immigrant sentiment, it was them saying, hey, we want to hear from you. So I leaned into it. I talked about it. It was definitely an honor. It's funny because when they first asked me, I said, sure. And then as I got closer, I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? This is going to be,
So scary.
this isn't a stand-up comedy. This is a speech. I got to give a speech. And I started watching a bunch of other comedians. The best really is Conan O'Brien. He's so smart. He does one at Dartmouth. But I realized, okay, since they pick a comedian, you got to be funny at the top, sincere, and funny. So it's that those are the three kind of beats. And then I asked them, I said, how many people are going to be there? And they said, oh, it's in the stadium. There's going to be 45,000 people there. I go, oh my God. I go, what am I doing? And I was a little nervous because, again, when I do my stand-up, I know the stories, I know the punchlines, it's all in my head. But when I have a speech, it's on a sheet of paper. So I've practiced it, but I'm not 100% off book. So it was interesting because if anybody watches it, they'll see there's times when I'm looking at my notes to see where I am. And they were such a great audience that they were like waiting. They thought I was pausing for them to either clap or something. So there was a lot. I was like, oh, they're engaged. So it was pretty cool.
That's incredible. I love it. I think it's such a great experience, and you should be honored that you had that experience. As we wrap up today's conversation, we've explored the inspiring journey of Maz Jobrani as an immigrant living the American dream, just like we talked about it, using comedy to entertain and heal. We've learned that even amidst the grief, laughter can be a lifeline. It's a reminder that we can laugh through our tears, that joy and sorrow coexist, and that humor can help us show up for others even when we're not at our best. Laughter truly has the power to heal the soul. So the next time life feels heavy, let yourself laugh. It might just be the medicine you need. Maz, is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
I'm going to say, yeah, laugh. Laughing is good. Well, there's plenty of videos online now with between babies doing funny things and cats doing funny things and people doing funny things. Take your pick. Whatever makes you laugh, definitely give yourself the medicine of laughter from time to time.
Definitely. And I've seen Maz in his shows several of times, so I would suggest you guys to check him out or even go on YouTube or online. He's really funny. And if you just need that boost for that day, that moment to cheer you up, then it's a great way to do it. All the links will be in my show notes. Thank you so much again for being on Female Fluence.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Female Fluence on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you are in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.